What is up, basketball fans? Welcome to the NBA Outlet. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. Kory, how are we doing on this Sunday?
Doing good. Sunday fun day. Spent my Sunday watching basketball from 3 o'clock basically until right before this podcast. So it's enjoyable. A lot of action around the league. Bojan Bogdanovic, crazy three. Ja Morant got his first career triple-double. A lot of action. We currently have Blazers, Miami going on. It's been a good day. And how about you, Nick? I know today was pretty important for your fiance, soon-to-be wife.
Yes, I did not get to watch basketball, but it was my wedding shower today. Well, my fiance's, and I was just there to help clean up and eat some food, say thank you. But happy to talk some basketball with you because I was able to catch it all week and do a little bit of research. But before we get into it, though, quick reminder, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, OTGBasketball.com, and YouTube. Subscriptions and reviews are much appreciated. Make sure you head to DesignTree/OffTheGlass, grab yourself some OTG merch. And as always, make sure you head to OTGBasketball.com for some NBA content. But Kory, let's get into some studs and duds. We didn't get to do it last week because of the trade deadline, but hit me with your stud for the East.
My stud for the East is Jason Tatum.
Okay.
I'm not going. I don't want to. I feel like every week we could say Giannis Antetokounmpo, and we could go, with probably even Chris Middleton. But I mean, once again, Jason Tatum has just been damn good for the Celtics. Obviously, they've been battling through injuries. Kemba Walker's missed some time. Jaylen Brown currently is dealing with 2 bad ankles. Still played through the game today, but Jason Tatum has really just upped his level of productivity for the Celtics team. I think he had a career best 7 threes, not today's game against OKC, but the game prior against the Orlando Magic. His last 3 games, actually last 4 games, he's had 32 points, 33 points, 28 points, 25 points. He's been unreal. Last 3 games shooting over 45% in all 3. He's been big to Miami. To Boston, getting some key wins here to kind of boost them up in the Eastern Conference.
Hey, talking Miami, maybe the way Jason Tatum is playing is the reason they traded for Iguodala. He's looking like an all-star.
Yeah,
he got the nod this year, and I mean, this is kind of what people wanted to see last season. It just took a little bit longer, and I actually have a stat line for this past week in front of me. 29 points a game, 50% from the field, 53% from 3, 7.5 rebounds, and almost 4 assists. They're just monster numbers on monster efficiency.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be, obviously, to whatever playoff aspirations the Celtics have, it's going to be heavily on Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. And we saw at times early on this season, Tatum obviously has been good, all-star worthy, but his jump shot was a little bit inconsistent to start the year. And over the past month, it just feels like he's finally finding his rhythm.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument that if Jason Tatum's their best player going to the postseason, their ceiling is higher than if it was Kemba Walker. Not that I think Kemba Walker is a bad player or anything like that, but you're just getting so much from a guy like Jason Tatum, and his skill set and his physical tools are just so hard to defend in certain situations.
Yeah.
But talking East, I got to go with my guy, Caris LeVert. Monster week, career week for him. Tied his career high with 29, and then last night he surpassed it with 37. Averaged 29 points this week, shot 51% from the field, 68% from 3, 100% from the free throw line, averaged over 6 assists, and just over 3 rebounds.
Hey, Caris LeVert is going to be crucial to when this Brooklyn Nets team gets healthy, and because he's already missed some time, it's important for him to get his confidence up, to get himself in a groove, and it seems like he's finally getting there.
Yeah, I think the thing with Caris that's really been hard, and a lot of people say he's been so inconsistent this season. A lot of it had to do with the injury, but then also there's been so much inconsistency with his role. Coming off the bench, starting, have a lot of touches, not having a lot of touches. I think as soon as they can find him a consistent role, I think the production will be there. But if they continue to kind of mess with his role when Kyrie comes back, I think it'll kind of cause some issue with his play.
Yeah, it's very possible.
And I think it's pretty likely for a lot of young players. But moving on to the West, who you got for your stud?
So my stud, and I mean, this is like, I don't want to say it's not a cop-out, but it's a weird stud because he didn't play in the middle of the week. But I went with Russell Westbrook. And this is probably because I wanted to go with him last week and I couldn't. And he still had a damn good week this week, despite, not playing against Phoenix and actually suffering a late game loss today against the Jazz. Against that Lakers the other night, he had 41 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. And once again today, he had 39 points on 54% shooting, excuse me. Russell Westbrook has just really found his place in this Houston Rockets offense. They're almost playing more around him than they are James Harden. Letting him kind of operate in the open floor and using Harden as more of a scorer, which I think we kind of alluded to before the season started as what might be best for this, Westbrook-Harden pairing. And again, it's just working. They're going small, and Westbrook has a lot of room to operate, surrounded by shooters. We've never really seen Westbrook in this type of offense, and he's been flourishing.
He's never had this much spacing. It's just like a completely different thing from when he played in OKC. And like you said, I think like they're suiting their style of play for Westbrook a little bit more. And Daryl Morey was like, hey, I have these two really good players in Russell Westbrook and James Harden. How can I get the most out of these guys? And, it might hurt them defensively, but offensively, it's allowed Russell Westbrook to be more engaged and put up some monster points. And, it just makes them a little bit more dangerous because they're just a unique team to defend.
Yeah, no, 100%. Obviously they suffered a tough loss today, but that win against the Lakers says a lot, especially when they're playing against, playing so small. To have that kind of success against a Lakers team that is pretty big, it's promising. And, Westbrook and that team is starting to figure things out.
And I'm going to go with a big in the West. I'm going to go with Nikola Jokic. Put up some monster performances this week. Averaged 30 points a game, 60% from the field, over 13 rebounds and almost 10 assists, close to averaging that triple-double, but also averaged 2 steals and 2 blocks. And I think if you're getting any defensive stats from him, that's a boost.
So it's funny you mentioned Nikola Jokic because I had one other player on the Denver Nuggets as a possibility for my stud of the week from the West. And honorable mention to Jamal Murray, because the last couple of games against Utah and Phoenix, he had 31 points and 36 points. Last night was more impressive, if anything, 36 points on 14 of 17 shooting. Obviously we talk about Jamal Murray a decent amount on this podcast and his inconsistency. I know you and me aren't the biggest of fans, but when he's putting up numbers like that in an effective manner, that's when Denver is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, returning from injury, like you said, averaged 29 points a game this week, over 60% from the field, 56% from 3. Just like a ton of monster numbers this week on really high efficiency. And like usually we're going through studs, and sometimes it's kind of hard to find a guy that really pops out. But this week there was just like numerous options to go through.
It was a really enjoyable week of basketball, I feel.
Maybe a lot of big performances.
Team base, maybe not like on a team basis, but like as a league wide, there was a lot of like I feel like what's the word? Like not honorable, whatever. Noticeable moments.
Yeah, there was just major storylines all week and performances that just really popped off with the trade deadline and things like that. You had teams undermanned, overmanned, or getting new pieces in, and then other guys that didn't make a trade just stepping up. And I mean, like, we didn't really talk about Dame Lillard. His numbers weren't as crazy this week, but you easily could have went with him for the amount he's doing to kind of try to carry Portland to wins.
Yeah. So now, Nick, to a sour note, who's your first? Are we doing duds for each conference or just one dud each?
Yeah, let's be sour. I got duds for both.
All right. So who's your dud for the East?
All right, we're going with the East. We're going to go with a guy that we were just talking about off air. We're going to go with Al Horford. 29 minutes a game, under 8 points a game, under 30% from the field. Had those comments about the locker room. And like, again, it just seems like Al Horford's not being the guy they necessarily want to be. Some of that's, age, some of that's the role he's in. But I know a lot of people talked about like, we're getting Al Horford. He's going to help us beat the Bucks and defend Giannis. Well, Giannis had his way with him this week.
And also, I didn't have Al Horford as my guy. Al Horford today played 30 minutes and had 0 points, I believe. So again, the struggles for Al Horford continue.
Thanks for the extra evidence.
Yeah. My dud of the week is Miles Turner. But I also wanted to kind of slide in. It's also a dud week for Nate McMillan as a coach. I don't understand Miles Turner and how he's used in the Pacers offense. We talked about this a little bit off wax before. They've lost 5 straight. He had a negative net rating in 4 of the last 5 Pacer losses. I think he's averaging right around 10 points per game over this stretch. He just isn't utilized enough for what the Pacers need, and it's causing him to just kind of look out of sync, out of rhythm. And as the comments start to pour in from Pacers Twitter and everyone else on the critics of Miles Turner being a bad player, It's, I think, a circumstance, but as well, like Miles Turner himself needs to be more aggressive with his touches.
Yeah, it's just like a weird situation, the role, and then just changing and so many moving pieces. And it's like, hey, Miles, we want you to be this elite defensive player, but we're not going to necessarily run a ton of offense for you. And like you said, some of that's too is like, hey, Miles, you want touches? You're a center. Go get offensive rebounds and putbacks.
And right now, I think the Pacers, and this was like a big talk point. I think they're last in the league when it comes to offensive rebounding, and then they're not as good. There's not good on the offensive boards, and that's on both Turner and Sabonis.
Yeah, especially because not every team in the league plays two bigs. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of matchups where Sabonis or Turner are going up against more of a stretch four or a small four.
Yeah.
So you'd like to see that pick up, and I think he can. I mean, I'm a big fan of Miles Turner. I just think maybe some help from his teammates coaching and getting him in that right situation. My Western Conference dud is Gary Harris. Guess those trade rumors did not run well with him. Averaged 5 points this week, shot 18% from the field, and 0% from three.
Wow. That's a dud. My dud of the week is Carmelo Anthony.
Ooh.
He did have a good performance against the San Antonio Spurs in the middle of the week. He had 20 points and was a plus 20 actually. But between those two games, he had 2 points in 26 minutes against the Denver Nuggets in a loss. And then the other night against the Utah Jazz had just 5 points in 38 minutes on 2 of 10 shooting. Just not a great week for Carmelo. And the Portland Trailblazers, obviously, they lost that Utah game by that terrible missed goaltending.
That was bad.
Call. And obviously as Dame Lillard stressed and wasn't even fined because the NBA, you can't criticize a guy for being hard about a call that was clearly missed. And especially as Dame mentioned, they're in the middle of a playoff race. Every single game matters for them at this point in time. So I pivoted those two moments as games or dud performances for Carmelo Anthony.
And I think also, like, just to touch on the missed call thing, there was like a report or a rumor that the refs had told the Blazers that there was no chance that was a goaltend.
Yes.
Like, everybody watching live could tell it was a goaltend because the trajectory of the ball just was so different when it hit the backboard, and then you saw Gobert touch it afterwards. It just was weird. Like, it's a goaltend if you watch basketball. That was just really disappointing. And the fact that they can't review that under 2 minutes or like call a timeout and challenge that is just stupid.
Yeah, no, 100%. They need to, again, I think this will be one of the games when we see this offseason, when they start talking about rule changes and stuff like that, where I think we're going to see, like, under 1 minute, everything gets reviewed. Or something of that sort, kind of like what the NFL does in under the 2 minute warning.
And like I get it, like the game's live and you don't want to stop it, but if they have a timeout and they want to stop it for this challenge, they should be able to do that at that point.
Right. Because again, like that game goes into overtime. Who knows what happened? Because like you said, it was a clear-cut goaltend. I mean, there's 2 referees also staring right at the play who somehow missed it. I like you said, the comment by the referee was made to C.J. McCollum, and as C.J. McCollum said, like the audacity of the ref to say there was no chance that was a goaltend.
It's just not professional. Like,
no.
and that's just showcasing an ego from the ref. And I get it. Like, you do need to have some type of ego because you need to be stern with your calls because you're not always going to be right and you need to just make the call. But, like, don't say there's no chance that was a goaltend, especially when it's that close. Like, even if it wasn't a goaltend, to say there was no chance, it just kind of rubs the players the wrong way and it creates more tension in that player-ref relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the player feel like they don't matter in a sense.
Yeah. And I also hated people after that game saying, well, it was only one play. Well, it was a game down to the wire and it was a clear-cut goaltend and it pretty much gave them no chance to win the game after they missed a call.
Yeah.
So, moving on from there, we're going to talk about a team that beat both of our teams recently, and I know the pain is still there. The Raptors, 14-game winning streak. They've been on a tear. They've been dealing with injuries across the board, too. Multiple big names on their team have been banged up. Lowry out the most recently. Marc Gasol still out. Siakam recently returning. But Nick Nurse and this crew is just continuing to turn out wins. It's really, really impressive. What are your thoughts on the Raptors in this winning streak?
Well, the Raptors beat the Pacers twice this week. So I had a front seat to 2 losses. One being the fact that the Toronto Raptors came back from, down 10 with 2 minutes to go to beat the Pacers on, was it Wednesday or Monday? Won their last 2 games. Last 14 games, last 2 games this week. They're just playing good basketball. Like you said, despite the injuries, it just doesn't matter who they roll out there. I mean, this guy Terrence Davis
is cooking.
Yeah, he's bursted onto the scene this year. I mean, he's one of their key performers now. Chris Boucher has had some really nice games for them. And honestly, I mean, your old pal Rondé Hollis Jefferson, he's played some solid minutes for them throughout this year. It just doesn't matter who is in the lineup for the Toronto Raptors. Nick Nurse gets this team firing on all cylinders. Marc Gasol still isn't back right now. Norman Powell is another guy they're waiting to get back. And Kyle Lowry has been huge. And again, we talked about how good Pascal Siakam was to start off this season. Over the last month, he really hasn't even been their best player, right?
Yeah, he's still coming back and getting to his 100.
Right. It feels like right now, like their best player is between their guards, whether that's Fred VanVleet or Kyle Lowry. Both those guys do a tremendous job for this team. Like Fred VanVleet, I saw someone tweet about this today, and I almost kind of agree. Like when you look at Fred VanVleet, a guy who's been a six man his entire career, 25, this coming off season when he's an unrestricted free agent, teams like the Knicks and the Detroit Pistons may look to throw him max money, which may seem outlandish, but given his role on this team, being a championship caliber point guard coming off the bench, you have to think in a bigger role, he may actually be, worthy of playing big time minutes. And OG Anunoby's been solid. It's been incredible what this Raptors team has done with the abundance of injuries. And again, they didn't make any major move at this deadline. They're rolling with the same team. And realistically, we haven't seen this team at full capacity because they just haven't been healthy at the same time.
Yeah, because all of these injuries have allowed the young guys to play more minutes, and they've gotten so much better and continue to step up. And I'll say it, I was completely wrong about the Raptors. I thought they would be good this season. I thought they'd be a playoff team, but they're playing even better than last season. They lost Kawhi, and they're dealing with a ton of injuries, and they didn't end up making any of the trades that we thought they would. They're just, incredible. This organization, Nick Nurse, and you mentioned all these young players. Terrence Davis has really impressed me, especially just the energy he brings. Chris Boucher, and I think that's one thing that stuck out last night watching them. Everybody on the team is contributing in some way. Maybe it's just that extra hustle play, that rebound, offensive rebound, or just providing that energy and spark off the bench. It's just a really good vibe with this team right now. And like you said about Fred VanVleet, he's proven he's a starting level point guard in the NBA, and a good one at that. Maybe not an all-star level one, but he's a good starting point guard, and he can run the show for your team. Good three-point shooter, and he knows how to just play basketball and do things the right way. And I think a lot of teams could use that going into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, for example, last 4 games, Terrence Davis is averaging 19.7 points per game, and hasn't had a game where he shot less than 44% in those 4 games. That's just production that no one could have predicted. And also, in those 4 games, he's 6 of 7 from 3, 3 of 7 from 3, 3 of 6 from 3, 5 of 8 from 3. Giving them another 3-point shooter, another guy who can space the floor. This Toronto team is going to be scary come playoff time.
And he's a rookie. And he plays with such great energy, and it's just something that feels infectious with that whole team. But let's give some credit, like we said, to Nick Nurse, who I think is an incredible coach. And Jack and I talk about him a lot in the Buzz because we wish Kenny Atkinson would do some things that he does. He's not scared to try anything out there, and he's not scared to put any of his players out there and mess with his rotations and get creative and kind of give confidence to his players.
Yeah, no, right now they have the second best defensive rating in the NBA at 105.3, 13th best offensive rating. And when you take into account all the injuries, to have this team be somehow second defensive rating while still being top, in the top half for offense, it's incredible. His out of timeouts are some of the best I've seen, especially in late game situation. Obviously, in both Pacer games that they lost this week, they were in close games with Toronto. And as simple as they can get, Nick Nurse outcoached Nate McMillan in 2 back-to-back late game situations. Out of timeouts, realizing when to put added pressure on the Pacers offense by trapping them in the half court or trapping them full court or pressing them full court, Nick Nurse has done a tremendous job through his first 2 years as an NBA head coach, which almost seems unreal to think about, is the fact that last year, in his first year as a head coach, they get Kawhi, they go on this crazy playoff run, win an NBA title, and then this year they're second in the NBA Eastern Conference, and they're 39-14.
Yeah, and I mean, they've dealt with so many injuries too. it's really a lot of credit to them, the entire coaching staff, because some of the best player development in the entire league. We know about a guy like Pascal Siakam, but we talk about Terrence Davis, Chris Boucher, who was one of the G League Players of the Year, I think, a few years ago. They consistently just find ways to make guys better and get the best out of them and help them turn themselves into great NBA players.
Yeah.
Now, we mentioned the Raptors didn't really make any moves. We're going to talk about some teams that did make moves at the deadline. And what I'm going to do, Kory, I'm going to tell you a team, and you're going to tell me if you think they're going to be ascending after the deadline or descending. And you can give, some reasoning if you want to.
Okay.
First up, Houston Rockets.
Oh boy, I think they're ascending. I don't know how much they're ascending, but I think they are ascending because I think this floor spacing that they're trying, the small ball, it's going to help generate their offense better. They're a 3-point shooting frenzy of a team. We've already seen the dividends is paid off to Westbrook. If these guys are all producing at a high level, that takes the stress and strain off of James Harden, which may actually help him be more efficient and more effective. So I'm going to say they're ascending, but I'm not sure how much until we see, what they do on the buyout markets. I do think they need to get some sort of serviceable big, just for, 15 to 20 minutes a game.
Yeah, it's like not even a full center. Like if they just got a big power forward that could play small ball 5 or just like give them some rebounding, I think that'd be huge. I agree. I think it's a slight ascend because they're just going to be a weird defend on every night because they're not playing a center. They're going with 4 out and one guy with the ball in his hands. And they're utilizing Westbrook like we talked about earlier. So I think Houston, just for the fact that they're going to be so different and they like tried to spice up their team, they should have a little bit more energy in there.
And they're so different. They had James Harden do the jump ball against the Lakers. And last night today actually, they had Robert Covington do the jump ball against Utah.
Interesting. Jump ball is going to be something to keep an eye on. All right. Another squad. Not really one we talk about a lot, especially on the outlet. Cleveland Cavaliers.
Descending. I mean, they made a nice move in getting Andre Drummond, who also has already said he's going to opt into his player option. So next year you have Andre Drummond and Kevin Love, which isn't the worst because
especially in the East.
Yeah, because I think also Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond weren't a bad pairing necessarily, but Blake Griffin constantly got hurt, and that rest of that Pistons team, we've talked a lot about the Dean tendonitis that has kind of really dampered the Reggie Jackson career. But the Cavaliers have hope for the future, but this year is still descending. I don't think there's enough they have. And this is still a very weirdly put together roster at this point in time.
Yeah, I think talent they're ascending, but actual play on the court will be descending because of the fact, like you said, they have 3 bigs. Like Tristan Thompson's still going to want to get minutes. Like Andre Drummond's going to get minutes. You can't play those 2 together. The guards still need a lot of development. I mean, ideally, you want to play these, the bigs, but then maybe play them with the young guards, and hopefully they can learn to play with them for next season because maybe you can make a couple moves this offseason and then all of a sudden you're competitive. Not to saying that making the playoffs is the end-all, be-all, but at least you maybe give yourself an opportunity, especially if you can't get off that Kevin Love contract and you already have Andre Drummond's contract.
Yeah.
Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh man, this is tough. They just hit a franchise record 24 threes to end their losing streak the other night against none other than the Los Angeles Clippers, which is a very good basketball team. I'm going to say they're ascending though, because now you have Towns Happy playing with his best friend. I think Malik Beasley, if he plays like he did the other night against the Clippers, they may have a pretty good 2-guard rotation going forward, or 2 good guards going forward in Beasley and D'Angelo Russell. James Johnson, Gorgie Deng's gone. James Johnson, though, Herman Gomez. They do have some nice, interesting pieces. You still have Okaji. I'm going to say they're ascending.
I think they're ascending. I think just for the fact they added D'Angelo Russell, it's going to improve their point guard play considering they were starting Shabazz Napier and whoever else they had available at the time. Adding D'Lo should be a boost. I think you already see the energy in Karl-Anthony Towns looking more engaged and just looking happy. I think that's one thing. There just seemed to be like a real positive vibe with D'Angelo coming there. And I agree. I've always liked Malik Beasley. And I think he'll have a great opportunity in Minnesota to be the player that he wants to be. And I remember hearing like on random podcasts, like Zach Lowe saying that like all the Denver team had just got in, like the first thing Malik Beasley did was go to the gym. So like, the work ethic is there. Maybe you can put it all together. And then all of a sudden you're looking at Minnesota. They have some young pieces in play. And obviously they have Jarrett Culver and they have Josh Okogie, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a team that I'm like excited to watch and like looking forward to next year. But on to another Eastern Conference team, the Miami Heat.
I I I guess they're slightly ascending. I don't think they got worse, but I really don't think they got much better.
Yeah.
Because again, like the moves that the Miami Heat made were all in hopes of getting Danilo Gallinari. So we're seeing a half-finished deadline project, right? I mean, this is partly what they wanted. They obviously wanted Andre Iguodala, but they were really hoping to flip Jay Crowder and Solomon Hill in some sort of deal for Danilo Gallinari. So that not coming true. I don't think they're ascending as far as they could have. It's a slight ascend. Andre Iguodala already had, I think, a steal within like the first 4 minutes of him touching the court. Jimmy Butler is going to eventually get healthy. That team is going to be really tough defensively. A lot of versatile wings are now on that roster. They still have a lot of good, decent shooting, but their shooting is just so dependent on the young guys. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Herro, even Kendrick Nunn is a big scoring punch for them that they need to be consistent. So they're relying a lot of their offense on young guys and a lot of their defense on their vets, which isn't a terrible mix. But again, I think they didn't make enough moves to be crazy ascending, but I do think they're slightly ascending.
Yeah, I agree. I think slightly ascending because you add veterans, more experienced guys, especially going into the postseason. You feel a little bit more confident putting them out there. I think one thing it does too is give Eric Spoelstra a little bit more versatility with his roster because now he can kind of play offense, defense, where he can intertwine some of these pieces. So hey, I got 2+ offensive players, 3+ defensive players, or maybe 4+ offensive, 1+ defensive, whatever he wants to do. He has options. And I think Spoelstra is still one of the best coaches in the NBA that no one really talks about. So I think for that aspect, they should slightly ascend just because he's a great coach and he'll be able to get the most out of these guys.
Yeah.
All right, last one, Atlanta Hawks.
They're ascending.
Yeah.
They got a backup point guard in Jeff Teague, who, watching him today, he's not very good. So he fits in with them defensively. We didn't see Clint Capella today. He didn't play, but did see Dwayne Dedmon back out there. And Dwayne Dedmon was utilized pretty heavily by Trae Young. Trae Young and John Collins have a nice repertoire. That's not the right word. Rapport. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And now you're going to add Clint Capella in the mix. Capella obviously is a nice double guy. I definitely think the Atlanta Hawks are moving in the right direction. You still have all those young guys. We saw Kevin Huerter had a big game against the Boston Celtics earlier this week or late last week. So I think they're ascending.
Yeah, I agree. I think just adding Clint Capella and Dwayne Dedmon, like no disrespect to the centers they had, but they just weren't established guys that are good players in this league. And Dedmon, I would say, is a good backup, and I'd say Clint Capella is a good starting center. That's automatically going to give you a boost, especially a team that had pretty much no rim protection.
Yeah, both guys give you rim protection. Clint Capella is a much better rebounder, but then like the one difference between Dwayne Dedmon and Clint Capella is that Dwayne Dedmon can actually stretch the floor a little bit.
Yeah. So he can, and he played there last year, so he knows all the players too.
Exactly. So it's this was a good move by Atlanta to get both these centers back in because both these guys I think they're gonna benefit.
I honestly just wish Atlanta made this trade earlier in the year so like they could be somewhat competitive and have a chance to make the playoffs and kind of be the team that I think a lot of people envisioned going to the season. I didn't think anyone thought they'd be amazing because there were so many young guys, but they thought they'd be a little bit more competitive.
Yeah.
But that does it for the trade deadline. We obviously did that whole recap earlier this week, so you can check that out on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. We're going to play a little bit of Shooter's Going to Shoot. And if you forgot the rules, so there's going to be 4 options. Kory's going to have the option of a layup, a mid-range shot, a three-pointer, or a half-court heave. So that kind of self-explanatory. The closer the shot, the more likely he is to go in. The closer it is to the take, the closer shot he's going to use. So first up, the Bucks are a lock for a finals appearance this season.
Yeah, I'm going to say layup.
Yep.
Someone's got to prove me otherwise, right? I mean, Chris Middleton has become the clear-cut number 2. We all kind of knew he was the number 2, but then once Antetokounmpo got hurt, we saw Middleton really take off, and Antetokounmpo's come back, and Middleton really hasn't had to take that much of a back seat. Antetokounmpo, I think, kind of realizes that he needs to keep Middleton's confidence up high, needs to keep Middleton producing at this level. We're seeing Eric Bledsoe kind of knock down his jump shots. We know what George Hill has been bringing to the table this year. Brooke and Robin Lopez are both solid. Wasn't fun. And then you just add Marvin Williams off the buyout market, another stretch 4. So I think the Milwaukee Bucks are still the clear-cut favorites in the East.
They have more good players than they have minutes for. Like, they literally have players on their roster that they just can't get into the rotation. And adding Marvin Williams is going to be incredible. I'm going with a layup here, and I'm going with an easy layup. Like, Giannis just drew 2 defenders, and you drop the ball from me, and it's just right there. Like, It just Milwaukee's team vibe, like their entire team, when you watch them play, there's just something about them. They just have that it factor, and it just gives you the type of confidence that this team's not going to lose to a lesser team, and they maybe could even beat a more talented team. And I'm not sure there's maybe even a more talented team in the league.
No, I mean you're 100% right. And just thinking about that team, every year the last 3 years in the playoffs, they've gotten farther and farther, right?
Yep.
They keep knocking on the door, and it just feels like this is just another year where they're going to take the jump. Our guy Cody Kluge over at OTG Basketball just wrote an article on if the Milwaukee Bucks can, win 70 games this year. He laid it out, and it looks like Milwaukee has a real good chance of actually winning 70+ games.
Yeah, it's like hard to see them losing games. Like if they lose a game, it's just like, we didn't have it tonight. Not because like, hey, they're not playing good enough to win. But next up, the Clippers are the best team in LA.
I'm was it mid range or 3-point?
You can go with either one. Yeah, both.
A mid range is a bad shot, right?
We'll just envision Kawhi shooting it, so it's a higher efficiency.
I'm saying mid range. Because again. We also got the news today that Darren Collison is not coming out of retirement. So the Lakers and Clippers are both missing out on him. The Lakers more so, I feel like, really were leaning or hoping that they were going to be able to get Darren Collison. So that's now out the window. We know that the Clippers went out and got Marcus Morris, who's going to make an impact for this team. I think the Clippers are just an edge better because they actually made a move that clearly makes them better, whereas the Lakers stayed pat. And I don't know if we can truly believe or rely on Kyle Kuzma to be their third best player. Danny Green has been good, but not overly great. I know Avery Bradley's been playing well again, but Rondo's bad, so you kind of hope that Collins was going to take away his minutes. The Lakers may be missing one piece. Now, obviously, the buyout market will be interesting, but as of right now, I'm going to go with the Clippers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Clippers, and I want to go mid-range, almost like a teardrop in between, because I feel pretty confident with them, because like you mentioned, they didn't make the move. Clippers got the move. And now it'll be interesting to see because we'll have some more buyout guys. I think Tyler Johnson was just bought out in terms of a guard. He's not amazing, but there's been some talk about like a guy like Reggie Jackson. Now that could give the Lakers a boost to tie it back up. But there's also a chance that the Clippers could add one of these guys because maybe they prefer to go to the Clippers over the Lakers. We'll have to see. So interesting stuff on that front. Next one, Andre Iguodala is still a good NBA player, a good starting NBA player. I'll use
half court. I don't think he's a good starting player in the NBA. I don't think he belongs as a starter in the NBA anymore. I think he's probably your 7th or 8th man off the bench. I don't even think he's your 6th man anymore. Now, granted, we're gonna have to see what he looks like these first couple weeks with the Miami Heat to really see what kind of game shape he's in. I know that he's actually muscle-wise the biggest he's been, but has the lowest amount of fat he's ever had, if I remember seeing this report correctly the other day. So he's actually arguably in the best shape of his career. Obviously, a guy like him who was on that run with the Golden State Warriors in the middle part to late part of his career, obviously got some miles on him. I just don't think he's the same Iggy from the Warriors. And if you're expecting to see Warriors Iggy, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm agree. I think a half-court heave here. I think the one thing that just concerns me is the lack of jump shot, and then he gets away with it in the past because he's so athletic. But getting up to 36, and like you mentioned, having all the mileage from those finals runs will kind of catch up to you. So see what happens with him. Obviously, we hope the best, but just odds aren't in his favor. Next up, though, the Rockets are a top 4 team in the West.
Half-court heave. I don't think they are. I think the style of basketball they're going to be playing with the small ball is interesting and entertaining, but I don't think they're a top 4 team in the Western Conference. I think it's still the Lakers, Clippers, Jazz, and it's to me. I think I would say Nuggets, but I really don't want to rule out yet the Mavericks, who just don't have Luka Doncic right now. They're still playing okay basketball, but I mean honestly. I think I would even say OKC is probably better than Houston at this point in time.
As an overall team, yeah, I think that might be right.
I'm going to go with half-court heave. I think Houston is good, but I think also they're just more of a regular season team, which puts them to me in more of a 5 through 8 range.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Half-court heave. I think there'll be so much inconsistency with the Rockets because certain matchups they'll excel and other matchups they'll disappoint. So I think they won't be a top 4 team, like you said. Clippers, Lakers, Jazz, and I'm going to go probably Nuggets with that top 4. Maybe OKC or Dallas can get in there, but I feel pretty good about Denver if they can get healthy. Last up, Damian Lillard is the best point guard in the NBA. Healthy point guard.
Layup.
All right, there we go.
I can't think of any other point guard
Yeah, I know. I was making this. I was coming up with some takes, and I was like, "Is this even? This isn't even really a hot take because like the two guys that you would think about in the conversation, Steph Curry, obviously he's injured, and then the other guy who's always been like Dame versus Kyrie, and Kyrie has missed more than half of the season, so you can't really go with him. And Dame's just been balling out. It's like who's even close to him right now?
You know the first two names that came to mind when you said Lillard, and healthy, I thought Lillard, Trey Young, and Westbrook. Those are
Yeah,
the 3 point guards I thought of. And again, like Trey Young's puts up fancy numbers, but like they don't translate to anything. Obviously, as we know, with the Hawks being 15-39. And then Westbrook has been playing really good as of late, but then you think of the Westbrook Lillard battle as of late, and that's been so heavily Lillard. So I think it is Lillard.
yeah, and I mean Portland didn't have to trade their center for Westbrook to have success. I mean Dame to have success. So
Right.
that is always it. That does it for Shooters Gonna Shoot. We're gonna go into games of the week. Monday, we know what we're watching, Kory.
I mean, we're not friends Monday. I forgot.
We're not.
We have Pacers Nets on Monday at 7
Except if I
o'clock.
need you to record the buzz, we might be friends for that.
Okay, yeah, and that's different circumstances. But yeah, so I think would that be the game of the night? Yeah, I think Jazz Mavericks is probably an honorable mention.
But no Lucas still, so
Yeah, but no Luka still a good point. Kings Bucks. Yeah, this might actually be the game of the night. Maybe
yeah.
maybe Minnesota Toronto, because if D'Lo's playing his debut game, I think that is like an entertaining matchup to watch.
And Magic number 15 possibly for the Raptors.
Yeah.
So I mean that's two good matchups right there. And like you mentioned, Utah Dallas will still have some pop. Even San Antonio Denver, previous matchup for the playoffs last year, you see some entertainment. You got Hawks and Magic, which I think is a solid game in terms of talent level. And then even like Pistons Hornets, not going to be good basketball, but they're pretty close in terms of competitiveness. But moving on to Tuesday, what do you got?
I mean, this is going to be there's two really good games. Now, well, quote unquote, really good games. Clippers, Sixers, and Celtics Rockets are like the pinpoint primetime games. I think Celtics Rockets would be my game of the night. But Blazer Pelicans has like a sleeper chance of being really entertaining. The Pelicans obviously play a fun brand of basketball. We know what Lillard can bring to the table every night. So I wouldn't rule out Blazers Pelicans being a really good game Tuesday.
The Pelicans have been super fun. Like the addition of Zion made them even more fun, and then just so many young players on the team. And shout out to Lonzo Ball. Like he's starting to look like the draft pick he was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I said I was really hard on Lonzo coming out of the draft because I was just very pushed back on the fact that I don't think he's going to be a superstar in this league. People were saying like he's going to be like Magic Johnson, and I never saw it. I thought he was just going to be a really good defensive-minded first playmaking point guard. And the fact of the matter is he has been both of those things, but his confidence is so high, he's starting to hit the jump shot, right? And if he's going to be able to create some offense and also has the confidence to take those wide open threes and nail them, that's when the Pelicans get extremely dirty. And obviously we know that he's already finding some chemistry with Zion Williamson in the open court. The Pelicans team is fun. Drew Holiday is finally starting to find his groove back too, I feel. That team is going to be entertaining for years to come. David Griffin's done a great job out there in New Orleans.
Yeah, that Lonzo Zion connection is something you can instantly see when you watch them play. Like they've had contested alley oops, like where it feels like a quarterback hitting a receiver on a jump ball in the end zone. That's like the vibe I get watching those two on oops. And like you said, Lonzo's getting that confidence from three. I saw him pull up from a deep three. I also saw him attack the rim looking for contact, which is something that he hasn't done the last few seasons. Obviously, dealing with a knee injury, he's tried to like avoid contact. The confidence just is up, and then just all these young players and things popping off in New Orleans. It's a lot of fun. But Wednesday, what do we got?
Wednesday we have. I mean, it's not a game. It's on ESPN. It's Bucks Pacers, but I don't think I'm going to be watching it because I don't think it's going to end the way I think it's going to end. Or it's going to end how I think it's going to end, I should say. I think Miami Utah though would be the game of the night for me, but you could also go with Lakers Nuggets.
Yeah, Lakers Nuggets a good one. Heat Jazz. You mentioned Bucks Pacers. I know Nets and Raptors will rematch, division matchup. I'll be catching that. And this is the second night before All-Star Weekend, so make sure you get your basketball in. Thursday night, what do you got? We only got two games, so which one do you prefer?
I'm going with Celtics Clippers. Obviously, arguably the best team in the Western Conference. A top 4 team in the Eastern Conference in the Celtics. seeing how these two teams match up, I just think is always entertaining to see how the East and West clash. And obviously, Boston didn't make a major move, and I think we just need to see how they kind of match up against the top teams in the West. So I'm intrigued.
It's like a low key possible finals matchup, I guess you could argue, because I think the Clippers have a real chance of getting there, and there's not no chance that the Celtics could get there. They could get lucky, or if their four core really get hot at the same time, they have a chance to beat almost anyone in the playoff series.
It's one of those teams in the when you look at the Eastern Conference, like the Bucks are obviously the favorites, right? And then you look at who's knocking on the door of making the finals if it's not the Bucks, and you can't even pick a team out, right? It's Raptors, Celtics, and Heat right now as the three teams that are all knocking on the door. And I guess you would say the Sixers as well, but I think the Sixers at this point in time would be like a tier 3 with the Pacers because they're just so inconsistent and they don't really have an identity they can lean on. Where I think the Celtics, Heat, and Raptors all know who they are.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Celtics just have guys that can get hot. You know what I mean? They got Kemba, they got Jaylen Brown, they got Jason Tatum, they got Gordon Hayward. And, like, that's just a lot of pop right there.
Yep.
And you have two guys drop 30 on the same night, it's going to be hard to beat that team. And then, like, obviously you have Marcus Smart and other good role players in that team. Brad Stevens, a good coach. The East
Smart
is going to be
the
fun.
Game today, he had a big steal on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the final 10 seconds to seal the game for the Celtics.
So I mean, the plays like that, and obviously one thing about Boston in comparison maybe to some of the other teams, they have some good experience too. Like they've made the deep playoff run where a lot of players on Miami, a lot of young players like we mentioned, they haven't made the run, but that's why they got a guy like Iguodala and Butler to kind of steady them. But still,
yeah.
Kory, anything you want to say about All-Star Weekend? Obviously, we'll do a pod and talk about it a little bit later this week, but any specific day you look forward more to, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
I generally enjoy watching the Saturday night shenanigans.
Yeah.
I think last year I think I had the OTG Twitter for the All-Star games. The Giannis had that crazy dunk off a bounce pass from Steph Curry, if you recall.
Yes, I can tell a funny story about this. So Kory was on the Twitter. He posted this tweet went nuts. Like, we're talking 100 retweets, like hundreds of likes. And I'm in a plane, and my phone, the notifications do not stop coming. I have Wi-Fi, but it's not strong enough. And I'm trying to watch the play. And literally for like the entire play, I can't watch the play. And I just keep getting notifications about it.
That's right. You were on your way to Florida, right? You're on your way back from Florida.
On my way back, yeah. So.
Yeah. So that was a crazy moment from last year. I mean, Saturday's fun. I do like. Is Friday the celebrity game, or is that Saturday too?
Friday is the celebrity game. I think it's like the celebrity game's always on a weird channel where they don't really like focus on it, but then they'll put more energy on the rising stars.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm entertained by the celebrity game. It used to be funner when Kevin Hart played, but he's now retired as the 4-time celebrity game MVP or whatever the hell his title is. So that's entertaining. And also just to drop. Not to cut it off, just to drop news. I got a Woj notification. The Lakers do plan on talking to Dion Waiters.
Interesting. I mean, like, the Lakers locker room has been so good this year, and the overall team chemistry has been amazing. They might feel confident enough that, hey, we can bring in a guy like Dion Waiters and we can steady him out. And then all of a sudden we're adding a nice bench scorer for ourselves.
I don't hate it. Like you said, it's whether or not, I mean, realistically, it's going to be whether or not the Lakers and more or less LeBron thinks they can bring in a guy like Dion and have him not disrupt. Obviously, as we know with Miami, he only played like 3 games this year between the gummies, the whatever issues he had going into camp, because it wasn't even because of his physical or because of his weight. It was more so because of how he was performing.
It was his role. I think he was not happy with his role, and
right.
He felt like, hey, we talked about it. Like, he came into camp and he was in amazing shape, but then like he wasn't getting minutes, and then he was upset. And
Tyler Herro, the young guys were performing just at a much higher level. They liked the energy, so Dion Waiters was obviously the odd man out. I think it's not a bad gamble though, because if you're the Lakers, like we kind of just mentioned when we talked about the Clippers added pieces that made them better. The Lakers do need to find some offense. Because that's the one. I think this team is good defensively, and I think you can bring in Dion Waiters. He is a decent defender. I don't think he's a terrible defender by any means.
It's more of an effort thing for like guys like him. It's like, are you going to put in the energy and defend?
Right, exactly. And I just think it's not a terrible decision to bring in a guy like Dion Waiters for 20 minutes off the bench to kind of give you some scoring, especially if you're going to consider a guy like J.R. Smith. I'd much rather have a 10-year younger player in Dion Waiters.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. That sounds like a good poll for OTG Twitter. But Kory, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No. Enjoy this week of basketball. Hopefully, we keep getting some crazy NBA moments.
Yeah, same thing here. Enjoy the week of basketball. It's nice to get back to a regular pod because we were so souped up with the trade deadline. Obviously, you can find the shows on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, OTGBasketball.com, and YouTube. And big thanks to everybody for listening.
Peace out, knuckleheads.